Welcome to another episode of the Assemble Performance Podcast. Last week, we talked about how to progress strength training in a hybrid training concept. And the week before that, we introduced this portion of episodes with an overview of what progressive overload is in hybrid training. And today, we're going to dive deeper into the specifics of exactly how to progress the running side of that equation. So we did an overview, then we did strength, and now we're doing the endurance and running side of the equation. So if you missed the last one and the one before, it's definitely worth going back and listening to those first. I am going to give a quick recap of the progressive overload one, so 2 episodes ago. But if you have the time, I would definitely recommend going back and listening to those. Additionally, I've kind of been teasing the last few episodes that I have something to announce. The announcement did go out to my email list yesterday. So if you are on my email list and you didn't see that, go check it out. If you aren't on the list and you want to know what it is, stay to the end of this episode. I'm going to give some details on that, and there will be a link in the description to learn even more. I've been working on this for months now. Very, very excited to put it out. And with that said, yes, that will have announced yesterday. So very new and very exciting. So definitely stay tuned for that. For a quick recap on the progressive overload episode, progressive overload is the concept of gradually increasing the training stimulus that we are putting on our bodies to elicit the adaptations we want. So faster run times, more muscle, more strength, things like that. In hybrid training, managing that training stimulus spans multiple domains and even includes life stress. It all is about balancing progression and recovery. So what does that balance of progression and recovery look like specifically for the running portion of hybrid training? Again, in the context of we're also doing strength work and whatever else we might be doing in our hybrid program. How I progress running in hybrid training, I've mentioned this last 2 episodes, but progress is really going to be limited by recovery. So just like with strength, progress only happens and is only possible if we recover well. I mentioned in the last episode, after training, you're actually technically closer to death than you were before. Not that you're going to die if you train, I'm not saying that, but from a health perspective, you're actually closer to death after training. I mentioned last episode, if you were to tell aliens everything that happens to our body during exercise, they would tell us not to do it because it sounds horrible. But that's what gives our body the ability to, or the stimulus, the signal to adapt. Your body gets faster and makes all of the good endurance adaptations that we want because it thinks it needs to in order to survive. It doesn't know you're safe with your running shoes and your headphones on, going out for a run on the track or on the trails or on the road. For all your body knows, you're chasing food or running from a predator or running from some horrible natural disaster. And so it makes these long-term adaptations because it thinks you need to survive. However, if you don't give your body the recovery that it needs, it's not going to be able to make those adaptations that are going to result in more speed and endurance. The reason for this is that making those adaptations, creating new tissues, repairing damaged tissues, they all require energy and they all require focus. And if your body thinks that it's still in a environment, in a situation that it needs to immediately survive, it's going to prioritize immediate survival over long-term adaptations. So what might not be very adaptive for you long-term is more important because it means you're going to survive. Because if you die today, it doesn't matter if you're going to be long-term adapted. And so this is why recovery is so important, because you need to provide yourself and your body adequate time and ability and resources to make the adaptations that result in progress and in better performance. This is a factor in regular training. So if you're just a runner or just a lifter, but with hybrid training, it becomes even more of a game of how can I run and lift and have enough in the tank to recover and adapt, because you're adding on a whole nother stressor. And so it becomes a little bit more constrained and complex. And that's why I've done 3 podcast episodes on this so far. Well, this is the 3rd one. So the first thing I introduced in the last episode is I like to think of strength and endurance as what stressors they're placing on the body. This is a term known as consolidation of stressors nowadays. I like to think of what energy systems and nervous system stress am I placing on the body. So we have high intensity activities that are lower volume. You can't do a lot of heavy back squats or a lot of fast sprints. So they're lower volume but higher intensity. These are going to tax the nervous system and energy systems in a very specific way. And then we have the lower intensity and higher volume work, like bodyweight walking lunges or a long run. These are going to tax your nervous system and body in different ways. I also like to think of the skill component of training, like I mentioned in the last episode. So higher skill movements like hand cleans, back squats, sprinting, these are going to require more energy and more immediate energy and more nervous system activation. And so I like to place those things first because you need that nervous system activation. You need that immediate energy to perform those well and potentially be safe if you're doing heavy back squats. They can be rather dangerous if you're doing heavy back squats, rather fatigued, and you don't have a spotter or whatever, which you should. I train in a home gym though, so if you see my Instagram stories, you see I don't have a spotter. I've just hope I don't have an issue, and if I do, I will bail. That's why I have bumper plates. I'll drop it. But anyways, if you want an overview of how I lay out the training week, I kind of touched on it last episode, but I went more in depth a few episodes ago. I'm not going to go super in depth on it, but really understanding where strength and endurance lie in this intensity volume spectrum allows you to understand how they're going to impact each other. And that's important for progressing running with hybrid training. Overall, what progression levers do we have? What can we progress in running? We can progress volume. That's going to be total weekly mileage or kilometers if you're across the pond. It's going to be intensity is another one. So how taxing are we on the nervous system? What speed work, intervals, hill work, even plyometrics are we doing? Those are intense. Frequency, so how many number of days are we doing our run or endurance activity? You can get creative, especially for longer distance race training like marathons or ultras, where you can do back-to-back sessions one day after another. You could do back-to-back sessions in the same day, separated by like 4 to 6 hours. You could utilize cross-training on another day, lots of things you can do. And we can also pull specificity, like I just said with cross-training. How similar is our running to our event or goal or our endurance? So if you're training for an ultra, you shouldn't just do speed work. If you're training for any type of race, you shouldn't just do cycling as cross training. You should also run. Don't overdo specificity though. There is a lot of merit to progressing other energy systems. Even in ultra training, I have ultra athletes do speed work still because I like to stress their bodies in a different way, stress those energy systems in a different way, and overall progress their entire aerobic system, not just the low intensity aerobic system. Obviously, as you get closer to an event, you want to become more and more specific, but especially in that general phase, you can progress a lot of different energy systems and still perform really well. It really helps. So some examples of progression of periodization with running. We can build, if you listen to the last few episodes, this will sound familiar with strength. We can build running volume while keeping strength steady. So continuing the same sets and reps and volume as in your strength and increasing your running. We can actually reduce running volume or intensity during heavy strength blocks because you are going to be going into running with more fatigue from the strength, or we can hold running the same while increasing strength blocks. We can also increase run intensity at the same time as lift intensity. So increase the amount of sprints or speed of the sprints while also increasing like heavy deadlifts and back squats. Again, just like with the last episode, you can be really creative. There's a lot of things you can do here. And the biggest thing is not becoming dogmatic to one or the other and thinking of yourself as a holistic whole athlete and not just as a strength athlete in one domain and an endurance athlete in another domain. They all interact with each other. And if you keep the same running performance with higher strength volume and intensity, you're actually showing more run fitness because you're able to perform the same given less ability to recover and more stressors. So I've been touching on that the last few episodes, but remember that it's all connected and your performance in one is not independent of your performance and stress and recovery from the other. Now, what tools do I use when I'm progressing to see if somebody's progressing correctly, maybe too fast or not fast enough? Biggest one is RPE, relative perceived exertion. I touched on that in the last episode. It is a way to auto-regulate your training based on how you're feeling. So it allows us to say, I want you to run at this intensity given how you feel that day. So if you feel horrible, that intensity is going to be slower. If you feel great, that intensity is going to be faster. This allows us to take advantage of really good days you're feeling great. And it allows us not to push you in the hole on days that you're not feeling great. Maybe you didn't sleep great. Maybe you're underfueled, whatever. Relative perceived exertion allows us to get the stimulus that we want, taking into account all the other things going on, recovery from strength training, life stress, all of this stuff. So RPE, huge. I have an RPE guide. I'll put it in the description of the last episode. I've got some more important things to put in this description, but you can check the last episode if you want that. I also sometimes use heart rate. I don't use heart rate all the time. Listen to my Zone 2 podcast for more details on that because it can depend on each person. Also, ventilatory threshold is really the biggest thing that I like to use. It's very similar to RPE. There is some components to it. To go more in depth, definitely go back to my Zone 2 podcast, but ventilatory threshold is really solid, especially for low intensity work. The episode dropped on August 12th on Zone 2 training, but ventilatory threshold is basically for low intensity work. Can you speak in 10 to 12 word sentences without gasping for air? It's related to RPE, works really well for low intensity work. Go back and listen to that if you are interested. Another thing I like to use sometimes is heart rate variability. I'm not going to go in depth on that because I don't think you should be concerned with it as a client. There's a lot of noise. There's a lot of background things that happen. Even measuring heart rate variability at the finger or the wrist can be somewhat subject to a lot of noise. Heart rate variability is literally the milliseconds between your heartbeats. And so if I wave my hand around, does that impact it? In a lab, there's a lot of leads that go on you to measure heart rate variability. So there can be a lot of noise. I'm also looking at sleep. If there's lower sleep, then maybe you're less ready to progress. DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness. Are you more sore than usual? As we train similarly, you should be generally getting less sore from the same stimulus. So I'm keeping an eye on that. Performance trends over days and weeks. So not just I performed poorly this day, but have I performed less than ideal or less than expected over a few days or a few weeks in similar sessions? That allows us to see trends without getting too caught up in something that might be attributed to more noise. Like, for example, if your run performance isn't great, but you neglected to tell me that you drank the night before, weren't as hydrated, or didn't sleep as well, I don't want to make training plan changes based on that because that's attributed to something else. And so I want to see trends. If there's trends, then okay, there's something going on here that we need to address. So if your run 2 weeks in a row is poor, there's not a reason to explain why, then we can start to look at that and say, hey, this might be something we should look at. Another thing, I'm really, really passionate about is these subjective markers. So how's your mood about training? How's your motivation? Any life stress? These things are big on check-ins. These are things I look at my check-ins. They're very, very important. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute as to why my approach is a little bit different in that way from most coaches and the value that I see it providing. But as in last episode, I gave you an example of a client where we had to monitor some of those subjective things. I have two clients recently that were both marathon clients. I'm not going to name them because I did not reach out and ask them if they minded being named. Before I name clients, I always reach out and ask. And if they don't want to be, I either mention that they're anonymous or I give an alias name. So I'm not going to mention their names, but they're both marathon clients. I was training them for their first marathons and strength at the same time. By using these metrics, the subjective and objective metrics and tools to increase their running, we were able to crush their first marathons as our main goal while also increasing their strength as well, even their lower body strength. This is shown by the fact that both of them set back squat PRs, one 2 days post-marathon and the other one 3 days post-marathon, due to the strength we were able to build during the marathon block. And hugely, the recovery capacity and running capacity we were able to build such that they were able to complete the marathon, crush their goals, and also recover enough after the marathon to perform well on strength just a few days later. So yes, the strength work we did absolutely played a role in that, but the running performance we built and capacity we built played a huge role in that because they were able to perform during the marathon and then recover afterwards quick enough to perform well on the squats. So this is just an example of how I use these tools to holistically build a client in a hybrid training fashion, such that a main goal like a marathon doesn't detract from our strength goals. It can actually be very complementary if it's programmed correctly. And so how my approach is different with this, I said this in the last episode too, but most coaches, they just look at the weekly mileage and the paces and don't even consider strength. Or if they do consider strength, it's kept very surface level and they just look at the numbers. They aren't looking at you as a whole human unless, even though they might say they do. I find a lot of people give lip service to, hey, I care about the whole human, I'm holistic. But then like they ask you once a week or once every 2 weeks, how you feel. And then they don't even do anything with that information. The numbers are important. Logic is important, but there's so much magic and things behind the scenes that aren't explained by logic and are just subjective measures. So that's why I'm so big on human first programming, on watching the numbers in depth, keeping the charts. I have all the numbers. I'm very nerdy. I'm going to get my master's in sports science, very nerdy. But I also really assess mood, lifestyle stressors, mindset wins and progressions outside of just training, hobbies, enjoyment of hobbies, number of hobbies, social connections, all of these things, life values. And I can adjust your training volume and intensity based on your overall readiness from the numbers as assessed, quantitatively with the numbers, but also qualitatively, what's the quality of the energy I'm feeling from you through our check-ins and WhatsApp texts and your comments after workouts. All of these things are so important because you are a human, a whole human, not just numbers on a spreadsheet. I coach athletes to perform well in both strength and endurance and anything else you want to do without taking away from your life while making you more fulfilled and happy. And that requires nuance and responsiveness to what's going on in your life. Like I just said, you're not just a number on a spreadsheet. You're a human with fears, doubts, insecurities, motivations, relationships, a job. So many things go into you, go into who you are, and your success with your hybrid goals is an extension of you. It's not a separate domain. Everything in your life affects everything else. And my goal is to coach the human, not just the spreadsheet. And I know a lot of coaches might say, oh, it doesn't matter how they feel, they have to perform. They told me this is important to them. But that misses two things. It misses how your life impacts your training, such that even if you do want this goal, it's important for me to know how your life is going because that's going to impact your ability to recover, even just from a pure, get you to your goal perspective. But it also neglects the fact that goals can change and shift and develop as we train. And if you're not attuned to the client, if I'm not attuned to you and have a relationship with you and understand that you normally give me a 6-minute check-in and you give me a 1-minute check-in this week, something might be up. Maybe you're not as excited about training, whatever. We need to have these discussions as we train because a lot of people, I've done it myself too, get really excited about a goal, but then on the way to that goal, realize that what I need to do to get to this goal is actually not how I want to live my life. I didn't really understand at the start, and I still want to do something cool, but maybe adjust it. There's a lot of things that go into training, into life fulfillment, into fitness fulfillment, goal fulfillment, hybrid training, and the whole human needs to be coached. I need to understand everything that I can about you from what lights you up, what motivates you, what you're worried about, all these things. That way I can help you become the best you possible. I can coach you, not just give you a training plan and tell you to follow it. So I kind of went off on a rant, but that's that. Now, if this resonated with you, here's my announcement that I've been excited about. If this resonated with you and you want to get started with hybrid training, I just announced something amazing yesterday that I really want to share with you. I'm launching an 8-week program aimed at beginner hybrid athletes and even beginner athletes in general who want to get into hybrid training. It's an 8-week group training program. There's a lot of touch points with me, a lot of deliverables. It's very, very affordable and a lot of deliverables. So very excited for this. It's called Forging Your Hybrid Training Journey. Click through the link in the description below to learn more. You're not clicking in the link. I'm not tracking your clicks and doing all this stuff. I don't even have the ability to do that in podcasts that I know of. I don't care to if I do. But click through the link below to read more about it, read more about what problem it solves, what it's going to be providing. And the biggest thing is joining the priority mailing list for this to learn more. Again, you can unsubscribe from my mailing list at any time, but this is going to put you on the priority list to get first access, get an exclusive rate on the 8 weeks, which is going to make it even more affordable than it already is. It's already going to be very affordable. And this is the first iteration of this group program. So I'm going to launch this group program once or twice a year. We'll see how often I want to launch it. But by joining the priority list and then joining this first iteration, you're not only going to get the best price, but you're going to get to really influence the future versions. You're going to get to give feedback on the very first iteration, and you're going to get to really influence future versions and impact future athletes that come through Forged. And so I'm very excited to launch it. Again, I announced it yesterday. It will be going live in a few weeks. The priority list will get first access to the limited spaces. I have not worked out exactly how many I can handle. I am giving a lot of deliverables, so it will be a smaller group. But yes, that will be on the list, on the link in the description. So definitely check that out and join the priority list. I'm really excited. I've been working on this for months, and my goal is to provide you as much value as possible at a very, very affordable price. Honestly, probably doesn't even make sense financially, but in time wise for me, but I want to provide value and really just have a good time. So I will look forward to seeing you come through the priority list. And lastly, if you aren't on the mailing list in general, you are really missing out. I send a few emails per week. So I send a podcast recap. Right now I'm sending one podcast recap and then 2 value emails per week. Ton of value in those emails. I really enjoy writing them. I spend a lot of time writing them, like an hour to 2 hours per email, roughly, like a lot of time, put a lot of time into them. So make sure you click through the link in the description to join the mailing list as well. And overall, just very excited for the future here at Assemble Performance and with what I'm providing. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the episode. Leave a rating, review, subscribe, all the good things. And I will see you in the next episode of the Assemble Performance Podcast.